Now, 50% of women in the UK will develop fibroids at some point in their lives. Do you know you've even got them? What are they? How can they affect you? And is a hysterectomy the only answer?
Bridgette York was 25 years old when she discovered an abnormal lump that was in fact a fibroid. It was at this point she realised that many women were having unnecessary hysterectomies to combat this condition, and she made it her mission to find alternative treatments. She joins us now with Dr. Dawn Harper, and we welcome both of you. So Bridgette, first of all, you're sort of 25 when you noticed the first signs. What did you notice?
I was just lying on my back and I felt my tummy and I felt a hard lump, and I thought that's not my abdominal muscles, because I haven't been sort of working out for a few years, although I was quite slim. And so I went to my GP, and my GP just said to me, "Oh, it's your abdominal muscles." And I said, "No, it's not, I don't think it is." And because I insisted, he then sent me to have an ultrasound. And then when they did the ultrasound, they found 4 fibroids, and one was 10 centimetres across.
So that's 5 inches, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
That's, big.
And at that time, there wasn't much information about fibroids. In fact, it's still the same now. There's no information in the leaflet, no information leaflets in the hospitals at the moment, or in the GP's clinics. What I tried to do, I actually found out that there were a lot of other women in my position. They were finding out they had this condition, not knowing whether it was cancerous or non-cancerous, and in fact it is non-cancerous.
They're benign tumours, aren't they? Yeah.
So, and they were very distressed, because what was happening, they go to their doctor, and the doctor was recommending a hysterectomy and not mentioning any other options. And the hysterectomy is removal of the entire womb. And especially if you're quite young, you know, it can happen to someone when they're 19, their 20s, in their 30s, 40s.
You were 25 and childless.
And quite large fibroids at that age, you know.
And they said, oh, hysterectomy, without an alternative.
Yeah, I mean, and what I was finding was up and down the country, people were just being told to just remove the entire womb, irrespective of their age or whether they wanted to have children. And because I realised it was such a big issue, and we did manage to get some articles out in the press, you know, because there's a lot of people campaigning against all these unnecessary hysterectomies. We got a huge response from women, and they were mostly saying, we've only been told hysterectomy, we didn't know there was an alternative.
Well, you were offered a hysterectomy. You said, no, I'm going to do my research. You went and did your research. You started up your own charity, the Fibroid
Network.
And so there's at last a flow of information between women saying, I've got this, I've got that, what is this, and you can find out the alternative therapies. You decided to live with yours up until 2 or 3 years ago, when it got too uncomfortable, too difficult. And what was your choice of treatment?
I had a myomectomy, which is where they just remove the fibroids and they leave the womb intact. So I can have children, you know, there's no problem with that.
So not as complicated as a hysterectomy, or as complicated? I mean, is there any reason why they wouldn't do that out of choice?
Well, doctors tend to just do hysterectomy because it's the treatment they're familiar with. They don't do many myomectomies on the NHS, and because they're not so familiar with it, they try to avoid it. But the thing that they do that's wrong is they don't tell the woman there is an alternative. And that's why.
Yours is, you say you had this myomectomy, which is almost like sort of shelling a pea, isn't it? You know, sort of take it out from the lining of the womb and then remove it that way and leave the womb intact. It seems if it's possible for you in what appears to be quite an extreme circumstance, because we've got the picture of the X-ray of this fibroid, which is there. So that's eventually ended up being 33 centimetres in diameter, and people were obviously they were asking you if you were pregnant, weren't they? Were sort of
I was getting my seats offered on trains and
yes. And then when it was removed, look at that. Look at you. When it was removed, you went down. You were sort of size 14, size 16. You went down to a size 10.
Yeah, which is the size I was originally.
So if it's possible for that, and obviously I suppose, not knowing, that it depends where it is and how it sits and how it's impacting on the womb. But
a couple of interesting things, I think, actually. First of all, I mean, that is a huge fibroid, and I think it's important that viewers realise that most fibroids are much, much smaller than that. The other thing is the time here. We were talking about 10 or 12 years ago, and sadly your story is not unusual in that you would have been offered a hysterectomy as just a routine. Thankfully, and I know that Bridgette's been involved in some of the National Institute for Clinical Excellence guidelines on heavy periods and fibroids and so on, and thankfully it is now much more routine that we offer alternative treatments. A hysterectomy is a routine operation, but it's a big op, you know, and we're talking a minimum of 6 weeks and probably in all reality nearer 12 weeks before you're back on your feet. And
huge, for a young woman, huge future implications.
And absolutely, it's not just physically a huge op, it's emotionally a big thing. And I see women in my surgery, you know, they may not even ever have wanted children, but they don't want somebody to take that option away from them. And it's also, there are all sorts of psychological issues like, is that, are you still a full woman? And I see lots of women really distressed. So actually I really welcome the idea that we do more myomectomies, we do more. Another one is an endometrial ablation, where if you've got small fibroids which are actually in the lining of the womb, you can just eat away at those with a little instrument that you pop in through the vagina. Much more minor surgery, back at work within 2 weeks, and you know, hopefully, certainly with a myomectomy, hopefully you retain your fertility.
Can I ask a sort of dumb bloke question?
Yeah.
What are they?
They are, that's not a dumb bloke question, they are benign fibromuscular tumours. They are incredibly common. The figure that always sits in my head is 50% of 50-year-old ladies have them. Good news is that the vast majority of us who have them, I could be sitting here with one today and have no idea. The majority don't have any symptoms at all.
What are the symptoms?
Well, yours are unusual in feeling a lump is not the usual way that they present. The usual way that they come through my door is some poor woman saying, do you know, I am sick to the back teeth of my periods. You know, I'm housebound with heavy bleeding. It's costing me a fortune in pads and tampons. I can't wear anything white because I flood. And that's the way they tend to present, is heavy bleeding.
And it's all sortable.
All sortable, definitely. Yeah.
Well, thank you both very much indeed, and thank you, Bridgette. And the Fibroid Network is online if you want to have a look at that, but all that information will be on our website as well.
Can I also just say, there's a new guideline that's come in, and it's actually offering women all of the new alternatives to hysterectomy, because at the moment we're still finding that doctors are not aware that there are alternatives, or they're not telling patients. So although the hysterectomy rate has gone down, it's because women are saying no to hysterectomy, but they're not being offered anything else.
Okay, so remember there is an alternative. Now, Dr. Dawn is going to stay with us for a special women's health clinic, and she's taking your calls after this break, including advice on heavy periods, HRT, in fact anything to do with the female form. Thank you both very much.
Yeah, thank you.